We kind of are not used to hearing compliments about ourselves, right? For some reason, we kind of get embarrassed. I met Sairi a few weeks ago at TiCon, and she said, "Would you come to SHEROES and will you talk to people?" And I looked at her and I said, "Really? For what?" Truly, I didn't know for what. And she said, "No, you've done a variety of things in your life, had a great career, which you've given up, and talk about that. Talk about the choice that you've made." I said yes, okay? And I'm prone to this kind of stuff. Anyone who's been on my team will know that. I will say yes to things. I have no clue how they're going to happen. Then we go out and make it happen, right? So I said yes, and then as we got closer to the conference, I sat back and I said, "Oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about?" And something that Sairi told me in that conversation struck me. And she said, "Talk about the choices that you've made in your career and your choices now." So I'm going to talk to you about the choices that I've made. And my whole presentation is really called Circumstances and Choices, because a large number of our choices come about because of the circumstances that we have no control over. And given that circumstance, we are expected to go out and do something. So I'm calling it Circumstances and Choices. And I truly believe the whole part of living is really to have the courage to bear the consequences of the choices we make, right? And when we make those choices, we're not really sure, are they going to be good? Are they going to be bad? What's going to happen? It's just having the courage to live with that consequence and do something about it. So it's my personal story, and I'm going to start off by telling you the most significant choice I remember making, the earliest possible choice. I spent my middle school being taught by Roman Catholic nuns from an Irish missionary. And there's a genius of a woman who said, "If you've been taught by nuns, you're scared of nothing." Absolute genius, absolute spot on, okay? You're scared of absolutely nothing. So I spent my middle school at Holy Child Auxilium, did my 10th class there, decided I wanted something different. And I wanted, guess what, a liberal environment and a school which had boys. Very understandable, right? I was 15. Please remember, I was 15 many, many, many years ago. So here's what I did. I researched the schools in the locality, talked to people, went and saw the school that they said I should go to, and went to the school, filled in my application forms, and then they tell me, "You need to pay the application fees." Guess what? Till then, neither of my parents knew I was changing schools. So here I was, 15. I have no money of my own. So I go to my father and say, "Dad, I need money to admit myself into DPS Arkepuram," which is kind of like going from a closed environment to the Wild West, right? So my father looks at me, and credit to the man, he says, "As your father, don't you think I have the right to see the school you're going to go to?" And I'm a cocksure 15-year-old, so I say, "Sure, Dad," like I'm giving him permission, right? To cut a long story short, he comes to the school, he sees that it's actually a school, it's not a hut, and he pays the fees. I joined DPS, and I joined to do science with mechanical drawing, right, before the summer holidays. Those 2 months told me that if you don't like your teacher, don't do the subject. So I thought our mechanical drawing teacher was terrible and our physics teacher was worse. So I just moved to a commerce section. Obviously, the parents are not told about this. They may have an opinion, and they may change my choice. I wanted to do commerce, so I went and I did commerce. From there, one thing led to another. You do commerce, so then I went on to do economics at SRCC, graduated, joined to do an MBE program with South Delhi campus, Simultaneously, I joined a one-year program with NIT, okay? And I was juggling both those things, right? And I dropped out of my MBE program. So I'm a college dropout. Though I must tell you in all honesty, sometimes corporate India has made me feel that I should have got that degree, okay? But actually, I am a college dropout. What happened was I actually joined NIT before I finished the program, joined as a trainee, and after that, I just became a corporate creature. So I pretty much kind of drifted into a corporate career, right? And I spent 29 years as a corporate creature, right? And really a creature. I've worked for only 4 companies in that time span, which is a little odd given today's liking for changing jobs every couple of years. And I enjoyed every minute of it. I loved it. I wake up in the morning and want to go to work. I didn't go to work because I needed to work. I wanted to work. It was fun, it was exciting, the adrenaline, the works. Yes, I'll crib about the amount of time I travel, people I work with, bosses who are, irresponsible to say the least, but I was a corporate creature. As of 1st January this year, I no longer work in corporate India, I work for corporate India as a consultant and coach. And the areas in which I do consulting and coaching are for small to medium-sized businesses, in both business and HR, because I have a background in both. But what's more significant is I'm actually a full-time caregiver. I'm a caregiver for my father. He's 87 years old. He has Parkinson's disease, he has dementia, and he has diplopia. So sometimes day to day, I don't know what's happening. Sometimes it's minute to minute. But that's what I am. But I'm going to just take a dial back and tell you how did I get there, really. How did it happen? I told you I joined NIT as a trainee, spent 17 years there, a god-awful long time, but it was the place to be. Entrepreneurial, energizing, learning something new every day. We'd be launching new products and services as if there was no tomorrow, right? It was the beginning of the IT industry. We would fight for every silly service that had to be killed because it just didn't work, right? But we would fight for it. We fell in love at NIT. We fell out of love in NIT. We married people who were in NIT. We did all of that. So it was 17 years of just doing, every time somebody would come up with a new idea, guess whose hand went up first? Even today, my hand goes up first, and I still have no idea how I'm going to do the things I need to do, but I put up my hand. Great fun. Towards the end, I thought I'd hit a glass ceiling. And that reminds me of the prior panel. The glass ceiling was not so much in terms of, are there positions for me? They were. But those people weren't moving themselves, right? So if somebody above you is not moving, where are you going to move? So I actually moved from NIT to JECIS, which then later on became Genpact, and I took on a job that most people considered to be smaller than the job I was doing at NIT, okay? Number of people were far less, revenue generated was far less, it was more of a captive, but I said, look, I have an opportunity to do things here, let me do it. So I made that choice, even though 80% of the people I knew said, don't do it, you're going for a smaller job. And I think I made a great choice, because that was the place where I moved from being an operating leader to managing a P&L to then doing a global training function in 5 years. Genpact, amazing, energy, change. It's a kind of place where competition literally slaps you in the face every day in the morning. Literally. Okay, you're competing with yourself, you're competing with really smart, intelligent, savvy people. Loved every minute of it. And You know, after I did my global training role, I said, now what? Couldn't see very much. And I actually moved to a private equity fund. And why a private equity fund? Because that was the only place that would marry my business background with my knowledge of education and training. So I moved to Loomis Partners, spent about 5 years there, and did 2 roles. Managed a portfolio of companies that we'd invested in, and managed strategic HR across the group of companies that we had invested in. That's where my true... India, you want to hide your head in shame. You want the earth to open up. And here there were entrepreneurs who were doing idea 1, it fails, idea 2, idea 3, and they were at it every day. And nothing could hold them back. And that built a huge amount of respect. You need to do business HR. Right? Strategy is all well and good. Again, like the panelists said, today, if you don't execute it, it's not worth its weight in salt. So I decided to do a business HR role. And here were my conditions. I'd worked in IT. I wanted to change my industry. I also wanted to move into HR in which I have no formal qualification. Right? So I went out, and guess what? Somebody talked to me, believed that I could do the job. I became the head of HR for India for Bosch & Lomb. Completely different industry, completely different job. And I have to grant you this, that somebody believed I could do it. I think I was still cocksure and believed that I could do it myself, but, you know, I'm going to be modest here. So he believed I could do it, and I did that job for my own consulting and coaching, and I'm a caregiver. But I believe that those experiences have actually polished me. I've had a lot of rough edges. Some of them have been removed, some of them have not. And those are the rough edges I want to keep, because I think it makes me who I am. But a lot of it has got polished. And a person who's standing up here and talking to someone and I die. For me, that's the best, right? I have said that all my life. The second one I've said is I want to retire in 5 years. And people look at me and say, how can you do this? How can you do both? You can't work till the day you die and retire in 5 years. In the morning, have your breakfast, pack your lunch, drive to work, do work, have your cup of coffee at a break time, finish work, get back into your car, get back home, get dinner on the table, clean it up, put everything away, including the ironed clothes. So yes, it's very easy to get help in India, but managing them is very difficult. Huh? Working day is to say, how have I worked that working day? What have I done in that day that makes me happy? Have I achieved something? Have I done something nice for someone? Did somebody give me a compliment? It's really that more than anything else. And for 29 years, let me tell you, I slogged like a dog. I'm still slogging like a dog. The first part of my career, by the way, I didn't have any vacations. I started working in 1985. I did not have vacations for 2 reasons. A, I couldn't afford them. Sorry, let me correct myself. The biggest vacation I had was a drive to Agra with a friend for a couple of days. I had no vacations. The second was because I was taking time of the stomach. I took weeks off while she went through her operation, ICU, recovery. In those days, in the 90s, she had 32 sessions of chemotherapy. She was in Bangalore. Nowadays, you get medication for hair fall, nausea, weakness. There was no such thing, right? You just stuck it out. And she stuck it out as a cancer survivor for 19 years. I have been a caregiver for my parents, well, my mother again, while she had meningitis. Not once, not twice, 4. I have flown down to Bangalore because my mother has told me on a Thursday that they have eaten curd rice for 2 days. So I've flown down on a Friday night, cooked the whole weekend, stocked the fridge, flown back on a Monday morning, straight into work. Because that is what I needed to do. And it was not just caregiving for my parents, it was caregiving for myself. I've had an accident I've been mugged, had an accident overseas, flown back flat on my back, in bed for 3 months with a cervical injury. I have something called neurological cysticercosis. I have been on anti-epileptic drugs for 4 years. I also got TB along the way, by the way, and had anti-tubercular drugs for 4 years. I worked 3 of those 4 years. I took a year off. So I think my vacations really started in the 2000s, okay? Accidents will happen. People will fall ill. People who I'm working with got better jobs, meatier roles, faster promotions, and it hurt. It still hurts today. That hurt is never going to go away. Because I'm constantly looking at other people who were my contemporaries doing bigger, meatier jobs and roles. And I didn't get them because I was running off to look after a parent or look after myself. Right? And I think that's always going to be there. So I don't fight it. Yes, it hurts. So just go ahead and do what I want to do, right? That hurt is never going to go away. So 29 years, I do all of this. Like I said, I did first take I think my first real vacation was in 2003. Yeah, probably 2003. So everything was hunky-dory till I got the dreaded midnight call. Not midnight, late night call. 10:30 in the night, my mother had had a massive heart attack, was on the ventilator. I was asked to fly down. She was in ICU for 6 days and died of multiple organ failure. And that was in 2011. I'm still, by the way, running a full-time job at this point, okay? Don't forget that, the 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 in the night ones. And my father, who by then had been diagnosed with Parkinson's and dementia, my siblings took him off to the US because that's what he wanted. And so he went in 2011. I joined Bausch & Lomb in 2012. 2013, Bausch & Lomb was bought by a pharmaceutical company. Bausch & Lomb was bought by Valiant Pharmaceuticals, 2 equal-sized companies, nearly $4 billion. And we were neck deep in integration, right? We did our first round of layoffs. And at the end of 2013, I was already hearing issues with my father's caregiving. It's difficult to do in the US, you need help, it's expensive, all very true, all very real. We need a break, all very true, all very real. So in 2014, I decided to bring my father to Delhi. Now here's the thing, the one part I haven't told you. We live with my in-laws. My father-in-law is 91, my mother-in-law is 80. And I decided to bring my father to Delhi, so I found a house, packed his house up in Bangalore, which was really full-fledged living house because my mom and dad were there, shipped it to Delhi, set up the house, found his staff, which is cook, major domo, part-timer, physiotherapist, 2 full-time attendants, set it up, flew to the US, packed his things, met his doctors, met his caregivers, came back to Delhi. Okay? 10 days. Settled him in. My younger sister came and did most of that work, so I'm really happy she did, 10 days. Settled him in, and that was 2014. And Bausch & Lomb decided to hive off 1 business, acquire 2 more businesses, and do 1 more round of layoffs. Can I ask for anything more? Viral in dengue, possibly. All at the same time. There were days when I did not know what was morning or night. I was burning the candle at both ends. Used to wake up at 4:45 in the morning to get in a walk at 5:30 so that I could go back, wake up my father, give him his coffee, find out how the night went, come back, change, make my breakfast, eat my breakfast, make my lunch, go to drive 1.5 hours to work, finish at 7:30 or 8, come back to see him just before he went to sleep, the works, okay? And it was killing me. I did not recognize that it was killing me. I thought, literally, I can do it all. I just didn't realize. I said, here is this person who has this abundant amount of energy, right? It's just 4:45 in the morning. I sleep at 11 o'clock, yeah? 5 hours, 6 hours should be enough, right, for anyone? Don't people do that? Don't young mothers do that all the time? They barely sleep. But guess what? The young mothers in their 20s, when you're 50, it makes a difference. I didn't realize the emotional toll of having to be a caregiver for someone with a degenerative disease. Some of you have spoken to me about having parents with degenerative diseases. It is exceedingly, exceedingly hard because they go through their emotional ups and downs, you go through the same emotional up and down. Sometimes it can be from days. So my father has had hallucinations that last for 2 days. Hallucinations that include, the flood water is coming, why are we not moving to high land? There are snakes on the floor, we're going to be bitten and we will die. My father has had a hallucination about being on a conveyor belt, being sent to an oven to be burnt for 30 minutes so that people with terminal diseases like him can die. And I have stood there and he's telling me this, he's saying, Sangeeta, I'm on pellet number 108. It is not moving. Look at this state-of-art facility. Why is the pellet not moving? Where is the engineer? And I don't know what to do. It actually took me 6 months to recover from this incident for me to be able to talk about it to someone. I couldn't even talk about it to my husband. Even now when I think of it, it's horrifying. So, one is those ups and downs. 2, a lot of you would have taken time off for your children to look after them, but you're always living in hope. You're living in hope that they're going to grow up. They're going to be able to clean their butts at some point of time, change their clothes, eat their own food, go to school. A parent with a degenerative disease is going to get worse. And when I say worse, my father will die, possibly, of 2 things: starvation or inability to breathe, because the muscles will stop working. He has also told me that he wants no undue measures. He does not want to be resuscitated, he wants no stomach tube, and he wants no lung tubes. He didn't tell me this of his own violation, I asked him. Because I, as his primary caregiver, must know what does he want? How does he want to live the last days of his life? And that's emotionally killing. Because I will watch my father die. There are no 2 ways about it. And all of that took its toll. Literally, I slowly crashed and burned till sometime this year. I crashed and burnt also because, by the way, I have to tell you this. My father's lease expired. I had to move him into a new home. In Delhi, people don't want to give old people flats because they don't want them to die in them. It's bad. So I had to find a flat, move him and settle him in all again. I also got stung by a wasp and sprained my foot. simultaneously, in April, when the weather is so great. So sometime by June, I was crashed and burned. I was depressed. I needed medication, which I took for all of 2 weeks because I dislike medication, but that's besides the point. My psychiatrist is not happy, but that's fine. But I did need medication. And it's a fact of life. What it's told me is, seriously, all this rubbish about phoenix rising from the ashes, you will become a stronger person, you will get the blessings and all. If somebody's been telling you that and you don't believe in it, please throw it all away, because I've thrown it all away. When somebody tells me you'll get the blessings of your parents because you're looking after them, I don't want the blessings. You know what the blessing is? That my father dies a peaceful death with no suffering. I don't want the blessings. I can do without it. He can't. So if anyone tells you, oh, it's going to be so great and you will be so good and all, you won't. It's going to change you forever. You just learn to live with whatever that forever means for you. It's a fairy tale. Don't believe it. So basically, I've just learned to be a chameleon, right? Things change from day to day. I change from day to day. Yeah? You hear this in corporate India, understand and adapt. You have no clue what understand and adapt means. Unless you're trying to do two things. Please remember, I'm still trying to run my own personal consulting business and look after my father, and not to forget my in-laws, who are great, absolutely great folks. I'm still burning the candle at both ends. I remember somebody told me this. I still follow up for payments every 3 days because somebody hasn't paid me for 4 months' work. And let me assure you, I need the money because it's very expensive. Old age is very, very, very expensive. I miss not being with people. When you work in a corporate environment, there are people there, you're talking to them, something is changing, somebody will talk about work, some challenge will come up, something or the other is going on all the time, and you feel as if you're breathing, the blood is rushing through your veins. I miss that. I just would love to do that all over again. I still do. But corporate India can't get its head around the fact that I gave up working voluntarily. In fact, I laid myself off. Any of you heard of any HR head who's laid themselves off? So when we went through the second round of layoffs, I put in a proposal to the MD, and then that went to the APAC head to lay myself off. And they said, why are you doing this? I said, well, the job's becoming smaller and smaller. 2, I think I need time to, spend with my father to sort out some things. And I laid myself off. Corporate India, when I still get headhunted, asks me, why did you leave Bosch and Lomb? And I say, I laid myself off. And they can't believe it. So I'm still doing all of that. And I've decided that I'm going to enjoy myself and do things for myself because I want them. I am more important than everybody else. By the way, I am more important than my father. I'm more important than my in-laws. I am more important than my husband. Because if I don't do things for myself, they're not going to get anything. So I was just telling this colleague of mine who's here today, ex-colleague, she remembered that. I actually went and I saw a matinee movie by myself on a working day. And guess what I saw? Bajrangi Bhaijaan. But it was the most amazing thing to do, to sit in a hall, my own popcorn and Coke, right? Come out, sit and have a Dunkin' Donuts, I don't know, what is it called, Lucky Lucy, Lady Lucy, something else, burger, and a drink. And I then called up my ex-colleagues and said, guess what I'm doing? I'm having such a whale of a time. And I attempt to do that every day. Something. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's going to be watching Beauty and the Beast, which is a silly serial on TV, I should be ashamed of saying that I watch it. I have actually recorded it and watched it, okay? because that's what I want to do. That's what makes me happy. Yeah? I've gone and met friends. I will go from Delhi to Gurgaon to meet somebody for lunch, take the metro. And that's it. I will go, travel all that way, meet them for lunch and come back. Because I need to take care of myself. Nobody else is going to do it for me. Actually, nobody else can. It's a myth that people take care of you. They don't. You take care of yourself. The only time when somebody else takes care of you is when you're unable to physically move or mentally make a decision. Nobody else, nobody will take care of you. It's yourself. So that's what I do. I truly believe there's only one life to lead. I can't change the past. And you know, the future, I can't direct, right? So this is me. That's what I do. I have to also tell you, somewhere in the middle, I started writing 2 blogs. I didn't have enough work to do, right? I was sitting at home with nothing to do. I don't have a full-time job. So I started to write 2 blogs. One's called Sang's Ramblings, which is my take on corporate India and human resources. The other is called Parables of a Parkinson's Patient, which talks about my father's life, but the stories of his life. And the attempt is really for people to compare what it is like to live without Parkinson's and then live with Parkinson's. It has caregiver tips and stuff like that. And I'm going to continue doing that. Okay, so I'm going to just continue being a consultant as much as I can. If I'm not going to get paid for a long time, I may stop that. Right? I'm not sure I want to do this for free for very long. I'm a coach. I'm a caregiver. And I'm going to be that for however long it takes. And I don't know what's going to happen next. Whatever happens, I believe, will be for the good. I don't know. It may be better, it may be worse. It doesn't matter. I can't define what it will be, but I'm going to enjoy today, which includes standing on stage with no sandals on. I have to enjoy it, right? I've had this up on my sign-off for years. I truly believe life is about how you're going to dance in the rain. My rain has changed. It's been harsh, it's been cold, it's been nice, but I am going to continue dancing in the rain. However much I can, how often I can, how long I want to. And nobody is going to tell me when I can't. So thank you for your patience, appreciate it, and if you have any questions, happy to take questions. Do you need? I'm always happy. Yes. I'm still happy. I'm still happy. You know, have you guys heard that song, Happiness Is, Pharrell Williams? You know, that so resonates with me. I can be happy. Okay, this morning, there was this, when I say taught, I think she wasn't higher than this, okay? Walking to school, very proudly, elder sister behind her, who was kind of 2 inches taller, holding her bag, and this little one has a packet of cracks, those corn thingamajigs, and she's eating them with glee and walking, and the sister is walking behind her, you know, carrying her bag. I actually smiled because I thought it was the cutest thing I've seen in such a long time. It was so cute, right? Government school kids, by the way, I know that cracks cost hell of a lot, but it just made me happy. And I think the bigger thing is to recognize that I'm feeling happy, to realize that I'm happy. I don't know if that makes sense. But just recognizing that I'm happy. Anyone else who has, yeah? Anyone? Sorry, yeah. Hi.
One thing is that I am so inspired right now. I felt totally clear when you were talking about your story.
Thank you.
And the only thing that I would
agree to disagree is that you said we all have one life and we should live it. I say that we all have two lives. The second one starts when you believe that you only have one. So live it for yourself, everybody. And hats off to you. I think my decision, my last moment decision to come to SHEROES is paid off because I heard you.
Thank you.
Bang on.
Thank you. Sorry, there's somebody here.
Hi.
Hi.
It's truly amazing to hear you out. My father suffers from Parkinson. It's really difficult. It has not been easy. How do you actually deal with it? I really see the ups and downs are on a daily basis. He goes through those emotional swings. I mean, shouted at. I also, sometimes say to myself, I give a damn. So how do you actually deal with it on a daily basis? How do you, wake up the next morning with a smile on your face and say, okay, it's okay? How do you do that?
Very difficult question you're asking me. I don't know.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. It's very difficult. The thing I dread most is the call in the middle of the night. Those have happened. I think for me, it's really a question of saying, how long can I keep my father in a happy state till there is a time when he can't. So I've had an aunt who had to go to a hospice for the last 18 months of her life because they just couldn't look after her at home. So I know that at some point my father may need hospice care, right? I also think that it's a bane that we all have the internet because we're researching the disease to death and it's frightening the shit out of me. Thankfully, I'm not on TV, so I can use the word shit. It frightens the life out of me when I'm reading about the disease. So for me, it's to say that here was this man. Okay, by the way, my father was the kind who would be the center of every party. He could do a joke a minute. He would eat food and he could give you a critique on every thing there, right? This one had too much salt and that one had something else. He was the kind who would play games with us as children. I want to see him live as much of that for as long as I can. Yeah? I have arguments with him when he's going through, when he's having a delusion or a disorientation. Yesterday I spent time because, so his servant, oh, by the way, I have to tell you this. His servant has gone on chutti. And mine takes 5 to 7 days off every 6 weeks. Just in case I didn't have enough to do. Just in case, right? So I spent the whole day with him because he thought, A, he was on a train, there was no booking, where is he going to stay? Then he suddenly thought that he was there at his father's funeral. And then I'm saying, I just asked him, when did Tata die? And he says, in 1972. I said, Anna, what year is this? 2015. Yeah, you're laughing, right? Yeah. And you have to find humor in that. If you let it make you feel sad, you'll be miserable. So I find humor in those kinds of things. The fact that my father thinks it's his father's funeral, and then I'm telling him, Anna, no, it was 1972, this is 2015, 40 years later. Sometimes it strikes him, sometimes it doesn't, but it's doing that. I'm learning more about, he tells me, you have to read Parables of a Parkinson's Patient. He's told me the craziest stories ever, and I've just put them down as stories. That's what you do, or that's what I do. I don't know if it'll work for you, but.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the great insight. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone has to give me a time indication. Sahiri, okay.
Hi. I'm just going to keep it very short. Your story actually reminded me of my own. I had a similar, I won't go into details because whenever I get to think of it, it just brings out more pain. But I'm glad that someone is standing on the dais right now and speaking about such an ordeal in his or her life. I think it takes immense courage and immense bravery to share such an ordeal. If I have to just tell you in a nutshell about my own ordeal, my own folks, it's a decade-old story, but just to keep it short, stopped believing in me. I remember a time when, raised in a typical middle-class setup, parents would think it okay. I mean, it's stereotype, but they think it's okay to raise hands on male children. And unfortunately, I was at the receiving end. I remember a time when I had to just walk barefooted to some of my relatives and share the ordeal that I went through. But at that point in time, just like you, I said to myself that I've had enough. I have to live for myself. And the moment of reckoning for me came when I actually left that setup and went to Bangalore to work for a year, and then later on to South Korea for 7 years, and found a life partner who actually really understood where I was coming from. So important to really, I think for a lot of us, regardless of male or female, is to understand what we really are in life and what we really want out of life. And do not try harder to impress people, to try to even break taboos. Thank you so much for the presentation today.
Thank you. You're right, you have to live for yourself, but I don't think you can predict. If somebody says, do you really know who you are? Actually, I don't. I think I get to learn things about myself every day. So I'm kind of taken aback sometimes. It's like I started writing and I just enjoyed it. Now when I start writing, it's like there's no time, there's no space, there's no anything. I just sit and write and stuff. So I didn't know that about myself. There are lots of things you don't know about yourself, and then you discover these every day, and I sit back and say, oh, really? Oh, here's the latest. By the way, I never really liked to cook. With the full-time job and everything else, not that I really did, suddenly I've now discovered that I can go on YouTube and look up recipes. And because I'm the rebel, I never follow recipes, I have to change them. So here I am experimenting with cooking and changing them. And every time I change them, I have to ask my husband, so do you think it's nice? And he always says brilliant. So I think his sense of self-preservation is kind of very well in place. But I'm learning things about myself that I didn't know existed. And I think that's going to happen till the day I die, literally, which is what I mean. I'm going to be working till the day I die. I'm going to be learning something about myself and other things till the day I die. I just hope it's an easy death. Yeah. I think that's the biggest blessing ever.
I have one question,
Okay.
yeah. One last question, yeah.
Oh, there. Okay.
I'm a lawyer.
Yes.
And I run my own organization now, which has very little to do with law. We are a very lawful organization, but we don't just provide legal services. The question to you is, how ready is the mainstream hiring world, the employment world, to understand that having a positive workspace actually helps in retaining talent? And from your corporate life experience, does it make a financial sense in the long run for the organization? To have positive employment or policies and a positive employment sort of a workspace. I mean, all through the day we've heard, I've been listening to the entire stream of consciousness which has said, we want people who work 9 days in a week, and we want people who can, actually be superwomen and supermen. Whereas the burnout factor over there is exactly what you and many of us have actually reached. Is it possible to make that conversion? Do you think it is something that's happening? I'm not asking for individual level. I'm saying in the on the macro level.
So My take is, I think all organizations realize that people who are happy in the workplace work better. It's a no-brainer. You don't really need research to prove it. It's absolutely true. The question really is, what makes people happy? And that's the $64 million question. What makes me happy is not going to be what makes the next person happy, and so on and so forth. And therefore, in organizations, it becomes very difficult to look at how do I create avenues of engagement that will cause a sense of well-being and happiness that cover most people, right? I think that's the big difficulty that they're struggling with. I also think, and by the way, I'm kind of advocating that people need to start thinking of parent care leave. Everybody thinks of maternity leave, but for God's sake, people are born, people grow old and get diseases and die. Can we look at both ends of the spectrum? But nobody is. That would have made me happy, by the way, if I could have taken time off. You know, working 9 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, big deal. I've done it all my life. I don't think it's such a huge thing because you can always find the time and space to do it if you love doing it. If you really like what you're doing, you'll sit on, okay, am I being recorded, by the way?
Yes.
Oh dear. I'm a rebel, I don't care. You can sit on the pot and finish an email or a report if you love your job.
I agree.
Right? So I don't believe in this 8-hour thing. What I believe in is being able to give you flexibility. The issue we have is you have to be seen at office at 9 o'clock in the morning. You can go home at 12:30 in the night, but you have to be seen at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's ridiculous. Let me work out of home if I'm going to produce the same thing. This whole thing of I can't leave before the boss leaves. You know, it's such a feudal mentality. Very hard to break it. I haven't been able to break it in many places. But that doesn't make sense to me. If you really love your job, you'll find time and space to do it. And again, you've got to want to work. If you're working because you need to work, I think that's half the battle lost. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but. Yes.
Actually, I'd like to
that's
add something to that, and because it's a topic that, one, I've been researching. Stay on stage, hang in there.
Okay. I'm hiding my feet, okay? Guys, though I've told you all about them.
I know. So, you know, here's a take on building more productive, happier organizations. I don't think anybody wants unhappy people in their organizations. Having said that, the productivity challenges are rather unique. Let's take the Indian context, and so you know we get compared with France. You know the 36-hour work week and the whole zing around it, the 4-hour work week with Tim Ferriss. I think there is a lot of movement in that direction. It is picking up. The second thing is we are a country of everything that's damn diverse. What is your flexibility may not look like my flexibility. Right? So if I say work any 8 hours and you decide to turn up at 3 a.m. in the morning and you're out by the time your colleagues come, maybe it's a wrong version of flexibility. And the third thing that's happening is, and I'd recommend Reid Hoffman's book, The Network, which is, you know, what is your relationship with your organization? Is it modular? Is it consistent? Is it all involved? Are you married to your organization? Are you flirting with it? Are you just about getting into it? Are you entrepreneurial? Are you somebody who's a stakeholder in the organization as a distributor, maybe as an affiliate? There are various kind of stakeholders, and there's a various kind of modularity that's building up. And I think we're right in the middle of it, and that's why it's all more confusing. It wasn't also more confusing about 20 years ago because you only had one format. Now you have everything crisscrossing each other, gender, age, diversity, geography, technology, it's all sort of converging in one place. So just making somewhere life very easy for us and somewhere very hard for us.
Agreed.
All
Are there any other questions or? Okay, wait.
All right.
No, we're done.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank
Sangeeta.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for your
much.
patience.
Absolutely. Big round of applause.
You're going to make me do this.
Thank you. Thank you. Brilliantly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.